On today's episode, we continue with our epic journey across America from North Carolina to Los Angeles, California.
Hello and welcome to the Great Adventurer channel. My name is Mark, aka The Great Adventurer, and on this channel we're going to talk about all things travel, from fantastic destinations and cool things to do, as well as how to get there, from planes and trains to cars and cruise ships. The journey is part of the travel experience, so let's enjoy getting from point A to point B. And then let's enjoy our destination once we're there too. Life is a great adventure. Come and join me.
Well, good morning. It is day number 2 of this epic journey across the country from Raleigh, North Carolina to Los Angeles, California. I am in Washington, D.C. right now, and I spent the night here in a hotel. I am up and ready to go. I will be going to the train station shortly, and I will be getting on a train this afternoon that will take me from Washington, D.C. all the way to Chicago, Illinois. It'll be overnight, and I will be in a sleeper car, and so we will see how that goes. So I'm going to try to go to some of the monuments today. I'm going to see if I can get over to the Washington Monument and maybe the Capitol. We'll see beyond that. I don't have a whole lot of time before I need to be back at the train station. It's almost noon now, and the train leaves at 3 o'clock, and so I need to be at the train station by 2. Plus, we're going to go to the Metropolitan Lounge today in Washington, D.C., which I have not been to before. So let's make it a great day. Let's make it a great adventure, and let's go get on the train. All right, I'm here at the Metro. I'm waiting on the train that's going to take us to Union Station and on the rest of our journey. Okay, I've made it to Union Station in Washington, D.C. for day 2 of my epic train journey across the country. Getting ready to go through those doors right back there into the Metropolitan Lounge. What will happen is they will call the train from in there, and then we will be escorted to the train and onto the train for our sleeper cars from there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to shoot video inside of the Metropolitan Lounge, but after you get checked in, there is a place where you can store your luggage as you wait to board the train. There are also drinks and snacks, restroom facilities, and comfortable seating for you to enjoy while you wait. I dropped off my luggage, grabbed some snacks, and am now in the grand hallway. I'm going to get outside for a bit and take a walk, get some exercise and vitamin D, and see what I can see in about an hour or so before I need to be back here. I walked over to the Capitol where I saw this lady worshiping. I shot this video of her, and I did ask her if I could use this video, and she said that I could. I walked around a little bit more and I got some more pictures before heading back to Union Station. I really didn't have time to see DC or do DC proper on this trip, but I have been to DC several times over the years, and it's an easy train ride to get back to. I do intend to do a video on all that there is to see and do in our nation's capital at some point. Okay, back to the train station now, and here are some pictures that I took inside the Metropolitan Lounge just before we headed out to board the Floridian train to Chicago. All right, folks, I am on train number 40, the Floridian, headed to Chicago from Washington, D.C. This is day 2 of my epic journey across the country on our way to Los Angeles. So in the roomette here on the Floridian, you've got thermostat temperature control here. You've got a button where you can call the attendant if you need to. Here's where you can turn on lights, fans. There's a coat rack right up here where you can hang your coats if you need to. Behind me on this side, you'll see the windows, and up here is the window for the person that's in the upper bunk. Down here is for the people that are sitting or in the lower bunk. I've got my big suitcase right here with a couple of snacks laying on this side bench, and then on the seat I've got my backpack. This seat is just a little bit wider than the other one, and so I will be switching those just to make room for myself to sit here during the train journey. This seat, which is for the other person, is in this car, and then over here you've got this folds down to become a sink, or yeah, folds down to be a sink, and then over here you've got the controls just like before, the lights. This is a speakerphone. I'm sure that's so that you can hear announcements from the attendants if you want to hear those. You've got lights over here. The upper bunk is up here above my head, and there's also a toilet right down here. Go up here with the camera. So yeah, this little seat pops up to become a toilet, and over here you've got some other controls. There are actually 2 outlets in this room, which really surprised me. I was really only expecting 1, but there are actually 2. There's a cup holder there for the little plastic cups, some soap there if you're washing your hands, towels, and I'll just show you this too. 2 water bottles right down there. I just heard the horn. I don't know if we're getting ready to leave or not. Usually when you hear the horn, you get ready to depart. But that's out on the platform right here at Washington, D.C., and we're headed to Chicago tonight, and we'll get there in the morning, and I will have 1 meal. I should have 2 meals. I should have breakfast in the morning as well as dinner tonight on the train. And we are off and on our way to Chicago. This is right alongside the Potomac River along the West Virginia-Maryland border. And after a little bit, we make our way into Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Harper's Ferry is significant in our country's history as it was the site of several battles during the Civil War, and it also has a little bit of significance in my own life. I spent the first 10 years of my life growing up not too far from here, and when I was 5 years old, my family came here for the day. One of the things that I remember about that trip was signing up for the Union Army. Not really, but on the day of our visit, there were actors or historians who were signing up kids for the Army. It's a national historical park today, and a couple of years ago, I brought my mom back here to look around and explore. I put links in the description of this video to both the Wikipedia page and the National Park Service page for Harper's Ferry. It's definitely worth visiting, and when I saw that the Amtrak train route came through this area, it definitely made it more desirable for my trip. The train continues on, and that gives me an opportunity to head to the dining car for dinner. 3 meals per day are included in your train fare for sleeper car passengers, and your evening meal also includes a complimentary alcoholic beverage for those over 21. Shortly after I got on board, a staff member came through and took my reservation for dinner. At the appropriate time, they will call your reservation time from the PA system, and you can head to the dining car. You will be seated at tables in groups of 4. If you prefer to eat in your roomette, just let your sleeper car attendant know and they can bring your food to you from the dining car. But let me encourage you to get to know some of your fellow travelers and enjoy a meal together with them. The food is pretty good on Amtrak, and you'll probably find it to be better than you were expecting. I also want to mention tipping while we're here in the dining car. While tips are optional, generally I have found the service to be very good, and most people leave around $5 per person at each meal. This is done in cash, so bring some cash with you on board. When you return to your roomette after dinner, you may find that your cabin attendant has already made your beds for the evening. If you don't want your beds made when you return from dinner, be sure to mention it to your cabin attendant before you go to dinner. But they can change it back if they need to. Let's discuss a couple of other things before we settle in for the night. First, if you want to change into your PJs, I recommend you do that before the beds are made for the evening. In my experience, once the beds are made, if you are standing between the bed and the roomette door and the roomette door is closed, there isn't enough space to turn around, and it makes changing clothes very challenging. If you have two people in the roomette, one will be using the upper bunk and the other will be using the lower bunk. The person using the upper bunk will also be using the toilet and the sink as stairs to get up to the top bunk. So you want to make sure that the toilet lid and the sink are closed. If the sink is open, this light will turn on to let the person in the upper bunk know that the sink is open and it's not safe to come down. And speaking of the sink and toilet, let's have a little candid discussion about those right now. The sink folds down for use, and when you press the buttons for water, the water comes out like a jet, and quite frankly, it gets all over everything. It was on my clothes, the toilet seat cover below, my backpack, the pillow, everything. And the basin does not have a drain in the bottom. The drain is located in the top and at the back of the sink, and to get it to drain, you just raise it up. Now let's discuss the toilet. I found the space around this toilet to be confined and restrictive. I found that this partial wall on the right-hand side nearest to the seat made it difficult to be able to maneuver. I was trying to think about how to communicate this without being too graphic, and I was talking with one of the conductors about it. He summed it up perfectly in 3 words: you can't wipe. Because of this, I ended up going down the hall to use one of the shared restrooms on board. And it's not like those bathrooms have an abundance of space either, it's just that they're a little bit easier to use in my experience. One other thing that I wanted to mention about this roomette before we conclude this tour, and that is the width of the lower bunk. I mentioned earlier that one seat is wider while the other seat is more narrow because of the sink and toilet in the room. This makes a difference when the seats are converted into a bed in the evenings. I didn't realize this when I went to bed, but I put my head down at the narrow end for the first part of the night. This resulted in my shoulders being slammed against the walls with every bump and turn, and prevented me from being able to truly get a good night's sleep. So put your head at the wide end of the bed and your feet at the narrow end, and you'll sleep much better. If you're a light sleeper, I would recommend some earplugs. Even though there are quiet hours after 11 p.m., the train may wake you up as you come in for station stops or when departing. Additionally, you may want to consider an eye mask if you're bothered by light. The curtains are thin and there was light from the hallway shining into my room through the curtains. I'm going to go to bed, but don't go anywhere because we're not nearly done. In the morning, I'll get up and have breakfast on the train. I'll show you what the menu is like. I'll talk about how much I'm going to tip my cabin attendant. I'll talk about what it's like to shower on the train. I've still got to share with you how much this segment cost in a roomette. And then I'll answer the question of, would I do this again? And my answer might surprise you. Finally, we'll have a whole day to explore Chicago. My epic train journey across the country on Amtrak continues with day number 3 right after this. Nighty night. Day number 3 of my epic journey across the country from Raleigh, North Carolina to Los Angeles, California on Amtrak begins now. Alright, I'm heading down the hall to go to breakfast now. One thing that you'll notice is that I don't close the door while I'm away from the room. First of all, you can't lock the doors from the outside, and often while the train is moving, it just causes the door to come open if you try and close it. I do usually try to pull the curtain closed and secure it with Velcro. As I'm making my way to breakfast, let me also talk about showering on the train. As I mentioned earlier, the restrooms on the train are small, and so are the showers. These are shared showers that are available to all passengers in roomettes. The rooms consist of a small changing area and a shower with a door or a curtain in between. If you want your own private shower in your room, you'll need to upgrade from a roomette to a bedroom. I didn't take any video in the shower area, but here's some advice for you if you're wanting to take a shower on the train. If you're able to find a longer fresh air break along your route, say at least 30 minutes, take advantage of the fact that the train will be stopped and plan to take your shower then if you can. When you're in the shower, you're in a vulnerable position to start off with, and if the train is rocking and rolling, you'll be bouncing into walls and shower fixtures, which is definitely not pleasant. From a practical standpoint, Amtrak does provide towels, washcloths, soap, shampoo, and conditioner for your use. There will also be a bag in your shower room for you to leave your used linens when you're done. And don't forget to lock the door while you're in there. Next, let's talk about tipping the room attendant. In my research, I believe that the recommended tip amount for a room attendant is around $10 per person per day. Tipping is not required, of course, but it is appreciated by the Amtrak staff who are working from early in the mornings until late at night to serve you. They are also on the rails for several days at a time and away from their family and friends. So let them know that you appreciate their service. Now to answer the question that everyone wants to know. What was the cost of this segment from Washington, D.C. to Chicago overnight in a roomette? Was it worth it, and would I do it again? I paid $496 for this segment. That includes access to the Metropolitan Lounge, my sleeper car accommodations, and 2 meals. Was it worth it? Well, yes and no. It's an experience, albeit an expensive experience. It is nice to be able to lie flat in a roomette and sleep at night. The privacy and having your own space is also very nice. Having your own door to close and the ability to change clothes or take a shower, even if it's a shared shower, and have nice meals included, it's hard to put a price tag on all of those things. But the alternative would be to do the trip overnight in coach, which I have done once before, and that was way more uncomfortable. Having to try to sleep sitting up, listening to all the sounds of the whole train car, no meals included, etc. And I had justified doing this overnight trip in coach because I've done overnight red-eye flights on airplanes in the past. Let me just tell you, this isn't the same as trying to sleep on a 5-hour red-eye flight. You're on the train all night long. You're seated in the same seat for hours on end. The train is making stops. People are getting on and off. You may sleep, but it's certainly not restful sleep. Now, if I had a second person in the roomette, that would help to offset some of this cost. I believe they would just have to pay the additional amount for the transportation portion, which I think would be equivalent to the cost of a coach seat, but I'm not 100% certain about that. But here's the no portion to answering the question, was it worth it? I paid almost $500 for this segment of the trip, going from DC to Chicago. Almost $500 to sit in a room so small that it can't easily accommodate my one carry-on bag and a backpack. Almost $500 for a room that you can't even comfortably change clothes in if the beds are made. Quite frankly, I feel it's just way too much money to pay to be this incredibly uncomfortable. So, would I do it again? In this situation, I'm speaking only of the single-level Viewliner trains that travel up and down the eastern half of the U.S. and between Chicago and cities on the East Coast. I'm not speaking of the double-decker Superliner trains that travel out west. I'll answer this same question for the double-decker Superliner trains in my next video, when I'm on the Southwest Chief going from Chicago to Los Angeles. As for the single-level Viewliner trains, I'm not going to say no, but I am going to say that it is highly unlikely that I would spend this level of money again for a repeat of this experience. I say it like that because Amtrak is in the process of upgrading its fleet. I am hopeful that with some newly refreshed equipment, traveling in a roomette on Amtrak will become more of the luxury experience that they are charging you for. I sent a detailed email to Amtrak after this whole experience, and in it I explained that I feel like they are charging luxury prices, but they are not providing a luxury experience. For example, I talked about the size of bathrooms on a train. They don't have to be that small. I am hopeful that Amtrak will take some of this feedback into consideration when designing new train cars for the future.
Well, I'm arriving into the Windy City and Chicago's Union Station. In a little bit, I'll get off this train and head to the CTA trains, which will take me to my hotel where I can drop off my bags. And then, let's go explore Chicago.
happen to find yourself in Chicago for a few days and want to take a day trip, check out this video that I put together for a day trip which I did down to St. Louis and back, all in the same day on Amtrak. I was able to go up into the St. Louis Gateway Arch, but I also talk about other things to see and do while you're in St. Louis. I've put a link to that video in the description, as well as a link on the screen at the end of this video. After getting a good night's rest tonight and a good shower and breakfast tomorrow morning, I'll be heading right back here to Union Station to share with you the third and final segment of my trip across the country. I'll be traveling on train number 3, the Southwest Chief, for 2 nights from Chicago to Los Angeles in a roomette. This is a Superliner train, and I'll point out some of the ways that it's different from the Viewliner trains. You don't want to miss that, so be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you'll know when that video is up on YouTube. I would also like to know what your thoughts are of this video. Please feel free to leave me a comment and let me know. I do read all of your comments and I try to respond to as many as I can. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I hope that you're enjoying watching these videos as much as I'm enjoying making them. Thanks again, and let's make life a great adventure.